The sound of shattering glass jolted me awake. My heart raced as I nudged Jake, but he was already sitting up, alert and tense. "Someone's in the house," he whispered, reaching for the baseball bat we kept by the bed. I gripped his arm. "Jake, what if they're armed?" He pressed a finger to his lips and crept towards the bedroom door. I followed, my bare feet silent on the carpet. We'd only been married for 6 months, and this beautiful house was supposed to be our sanctuary. Now, fear coursed through my veins as we inched down the hallway. A beam of light swept across the living room floor. Jake motioned for me to stay back as he peered around the corner. Suddenly, he sprang forward, swinging the bat. "Get out of my house!" he roared. There was a crash, followed by rapid footsteps. By the time I reached the living room, the intruder was gone, leaving behind a broken window and upended furniture. Jake pulled me close. "Are you okay, Landon?" I nodded, my body trembling. "Should we call the police?" "Already on it," he said, reaching for his phone. As Jake spoke with the dispatcher, I surveyed the damage. Our wedding photos lay scattered on the floor, frames cracked. I bent to pick them up, fighting back tears. That's when I saw it, a crumpled envelope peeking out from beneath the overturned coffee table. I reached for it, curiosity overriding my fear. The letter inside was addressed to Jake, dated just weeks before our wedding. As I unfolded it, my eyes widened in disbelief. "Jake," I called out, my voice shaking. "You need to see this." He hung up the phone and came over, concern etched on his face. "What is it, honey?" I handed him the letter, watching as confusion turned to shock, then anger. This can't be right," he muttered. "It's from your mother, Jake. How could she say those things about me?" The letter was filled with vitriol, urging Jake to reconsider marrying me. Susan, my mother-in-law, had always seemed so warm and welcoming. But here, in black and white, was proof of her true feelings. Jake crumpled the paper in his fist. "I'm so sorry, Landon. I had no idea." Before I could respond, red and blue lights flashed through the broken window. The police had arrived. The next hour passed in a blur of questions and crime scene tape. As the officers finally left, promising to increase patrols in the area, I sank onto the couch, emotionally drained. Jake sat beside me, taking my hands in his. "We need to talk about that letter," I nodded, fighting back tears. "How long has she felt this way about me?" "I don't know," Jake admitted, "but I'm going to find out. First thing tomorrow, we're going to confront her." A chill ran down my spine. "Jake, I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe we should." The shrill ring of Jake's phone cut me off. He glanced at the screen and grimaced. "It's Mom." I tensed as he answered, putting it on speaker. "Jake, are you all right?" Susan's voice crackled through the line, laced with concern. "I just saw on the news about a break-in in your neighborhood." Jake's jaw clenched. "We're fine, Mom, but something interesting turned up during the robbery." There was a pause. "Oh? What do you mean?" "A letter," Jake said coldly, "from you to me about Landon." The silence that followed was deafening. When Susan finally spoke, her voice had lost its warmth. "I see. Well, perhaps it's time we had a family meeting. Why don't you both come over for breakfast tomorrow?" As Jake agreed and ended the call, I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Whatever came next, I knew our lives would never be the same. The drive to Susan and Roger's house felt like a journey to the gallows. Jake's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and I couldn't stop fidgeting with my wedding ring. As we pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. Susan greeted us at the door with a plastic smile. "Come in, dears. I've made your favorite blueberry pancakes, Jake." The kitchen was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the chill in my heart. As we sat around the table, the tension was palpable. Roger, Jake's father, looked confused and concerned. "So," Susan began, pouring coffee, "I understand you found something during the break-in." Jake pulled out the crumpled letter. "Care to explain this, Mom?" Susan's face paled as she read it. "Where did you get this? Does it matter?" I interjected, my voice trembling. "What matters is what you wrote. How could you say those things about me?" Roger took the letter, his brow furrowing as he read. "Susan, what is this?" "It's nothing," she snapped, snatching it back. "Just a moment of weakness before the wedding. I was worried about Jake rushing into things." I felt my anger rising. "A moment of weakness? You called me a gold digger and said I wasn't good enough for your son." "I was protecting my family," Susan retorted, her mask of politeness slipping. "You have to understand, Landon, that we have certain standards." "Standards?" Jake interrupted, his voice cold. "What standards, Mom? Landon is kind, intelligent, and hardworking. She makes me happy. Isn't that enough?" Susan's eyes narrowed. Happiness isn't everything, Jake. There are expectations in this family, responsibilities. That's enough, Roger cut in, his face red with anger. Susan, I can't believe you wrote this. We raised our boys better than this. As the argument escalated, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Excusing myself, I fled to the bathroom, barely making it before I threw up. As I splashed water on my face, I heard a soft knock. Landine? Are you okay? It was Jake. I opened the door, collapsing into his arms. I can't do this, Jake. I can't be part of a family that hates me. He held me tight. We'll figure this out, I promise. Let's go home. As we said our goodbyes, Susan pulled me aside. Landon, I hope you can forgive my moment of weakness. Let's start fresh, shall we? I'm hosting a charity luncheon next week. Why don't you help me organize it? I nodded numbly, too exhausted to argue. But as we drove home, Susan's words replayed in my mind. Was this an olive branch, or something more sinister? The next week was a whirlwind of preparations for Susan's luncheon. She called constantly with demands and changes, each one more unreasonable than the last. By the day of the event, I was running on fumes. As I arranged flowers in Susan's immaculate living room, she swept in, frowning. Oh no, those won't do at all. I specifically asked for peonies, not roses. But you said... Never mind what I said, she snapped. Just fix it. And while you're at it, the tablecloths need to be pressed again. Really, Landon, I expected better from you. I bit my tongue, fighting back tears of frustration. As I struggled with the heavy iron, I overheard Susan on the phone. Yes, she's here now. No, don't worry, I have it all under control. By the time I'm done, Jake will see her for what she really is. My hand slipped and the iron clattered to the floor. Susan whirled around, her eyes cold. Is there a problem, Landon? I straightened up, my heart pounding. No, Susan. No problem at all. But as I met her gaze, I knew the battle lines had been drawn. This wasn't just about a letter anymore. It was war. The charity luncheon was in full swing, and I was running on fumes. As I refilled water glasses, my eyes caught sight of Elsie, Jake's younger brother's wife, gliding effortlessly through the crowd. Susan's arm was linked with hers, both women laughing as if they were lifelong friends. Landon, dear. Susan's voice cut through the chatter. We need more hors d'oeuvres. Chop, chop! I gritted my teeth and headed for the kitchen, my cheeks burning with humiliation. As I loaded the tray, I overheard Susan's voice from the adjacent room. Elsie, you're such a natural at this. I'm so glad Michael married you. You're exactly what this family needs. My hands trembled, nearly dropping the tray. I steadied myself and walked back into the living room, plastering on a smile as I offered appetizers to the guests. Oh, Landon, Susan called out, waving me over. Come meet Mrs. Worthington. She's on the hospital board with me. I approached, balancing the heavy tray. Susan's eyes narrowed as she looked me up and down. This is Jake's wife, she said, her tone dismissive. She's still learning the ropes of our social circle. Mrs. Worthington gave me a pitying look. Well, dear, I'm sure you'll catch on eventually. It just takes some people longer than others. Before I could respond, Susan chimed in. Elsie, come tell Mrs. Worthington about your volunteer work at the Children's Hospital. As Elsie launched into her story, I stood there, invisible, still holding the tray. The weight of it matched the heaviness in my chest. Later that evening, as the last guests left, I started cleaning up. Elsie approached, her face sympathetic. Let me help you with that, Landon, she offered, reaching for a stack of plates. It's fine, I said, my voice tight. I've got it. Elsie hesitated. Look, I know Susan can be difficult, but she means well. She just wants what's best for the family. I couldn't hold back anymore. And I'm not what's best? Is that it? No, that's not what I meant. Elsie, darling, Susan interrupted, sweeping into the room. Michael's looking for you. Why don't you head home? Landon can finish up here. As Elsie left, Susan turned to me, her smile gone. I hope you're not filling Elsie's head with nonsense. She's a lovely girl, and I won't have you poisoning her against me. Me? I sputtered. You're the one who's been. Enough, Susan snapped. I've been more than patient with you, Landon, but it's time you understood your place in this family. Jake may have married you, but that doesn't make you one of us. I felt something snap inside me. And what exactly is my place, Susan? To be your servant, your punching bag. Her eyes flashed dangerously. Your place is wherever I say it is, and right now it's finishing these dishes and leaving my house spotless. Understood? As she stormed out, I stood there, shaking with rage and hurt. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jake's number. Hey, honey, he answered. How'd the luncheon go? I took a deep breath. Jake, we need to talk. About your mother, about Elsie, about everything. There was a pause. Landon, not this again. I'm sure you're just overreacting. Overreacting? I nearly shouted. You have no idea what's been happening. Your mother. Look, Jake interrupted, his voice tired. I can't deal with this right now. I'm swamped at work. We'll talk later, okay? The line went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling more alone than ever. As I looked around the pristine kitchen, at the mountain of dishes waiting for me, something inside me hardened. No more, I thought. No more playing the dutiful daughter-in-law. No more silent suffering. It was time to fight back. With newfound determination, I picked up a plate and hurled it against the wall, watching it shatter into 1,000 pieces. The sound echoed through the empty house, a declaration of war. The days following the charity luncheon blurred together in a haze of tension and unspoken resentment. Jake and I barely spoke, the silence between us growing like a chasm. Every time I tried to broach the subject of his mother, he'd find an excuse to leave or change the subject. One evening, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed with a text from Elsie. Family dinner at Susan's tonight. Hope to see you there. My stomach clenched. I hadn't been invited. When Jake came home, I confronted him. Did you know about the dinner at your mother's? He looked away, guilt flashing across his face. I thought it might be best if you sat this one out. I'll give everyone a chance to cool off. I felt like I'd been slapped. So you're going without me? Landon, please understand, Mom's been under a lot of stress lately and what about my stress? I snapped. Do you have any idea what I've been going through? Jake's expression hardened. Look, I'm tired of being caught in the middle. Maybe if you tried harder to fit in. Fit in? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jake, your mother hates me. She's made that perfectly clear. He shook his head, grabbing his keys. I can't deal with this right now. I'm going to the dinner. We'll talk when I get back. As the door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. How had it come to this? Hours later, my phone pinged with a notification. It was a social media post from Susan. A picture of the family gathered around the dinner table. All smiles. Elsie was seated next to Susan, both laughing at some private joke. The caption read, "So blessed to have my family together. Some of us, anyway." Something snapped inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Without thinking, I grabbed my car keys and drove to Susan's house. As I pulled up, I saw the family still gathered in the living room through the large bay window. Taking a deep breath, I marched up to the front door and rang the bell. Susan answered, her smile faltering when she saw me. Landon, what are you doing here? I pushed past her into the house. The room fell silent as everyone turned to stare. I want to know why, I said, my voice shaking. Why do you hate me so much? What have I ever done to you? Susan's face turned to stone. This is hardly the time or place. No, I interrupted. This is exactly the time and place. I want everyone to hear this. Jake stood up, his face pale. Landon, please. But I was beyond stopping. You've manipulated this family, turned them against me. And for what? Because I'm not from the right background? Because I don't fit your precious image? Susan's eyes flashed dangerously. You want to know why? Fine. You're not good enough for this family. You never have been, and you never will be. Jake deserves better than some small-town nobody with delusions of grandeur. The room gasped. Even Elsie looked shocked. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Thank you for finally being honest, Susan. Now everyone can see you for who you really are. I turned to Jake, who stood frozen, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. And you've stood by and let this happen. You've chosen your mother over me, time and time again. Landon, that's not fair, he started, but I cut him off. No, what's not fair is how I've been treated. I'm done. I'm done with all of this. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Elsie. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of understanding pass between us. I walked out of that house with my head held high, leaving behind a stunned silence. As I drove home, I realized I'd reached a crossroads. It was time to make a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow, I would start fighting back. And this time, I wouldn't stop until I'd exposed the truth, no matter the cost. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were a blur of tension and barely concealed hostility. Jake and I were like strangers in our own home, tiptoeing around each other, afraid to shatter the fragile peace. When Susan called to discuss Thanksgiving plans, I braced myself for the worst. Landon, dear. Her saccharine voice dripped through the phone. I'm sure you'll want to handle all the cooking this year. It's about time you proved yourself useful to this family. I gritted my teeth. Of course, Susan. I'd be happy to. What followed was a barrage of demands, specific recipes, elaborate table settings, a guest list that seemed to grow by the hour. With each passing day, the weight of expectations crushed me further. The night before Thanksgiving, I was up past midnight, prepping dishes and checking lists. Jake wandered into the kitchen, bleary-eyed. "Honey, come to bed. You're working yourself too hard." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you notice? Where was this concern when your mother was piling all this on me?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Landon, please, can't we just have one peaceful holiday?" "Peace?" I slammed down the bowl I was holding. "There's no peace in this family, Jake. There's just your mother's tyranny and everyone else falling in line." He opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it and retreated to the bedroom. I turned back to my work, tears of frustration stinging my eyes. Thanksgiving Day arrived with a vengeance. I was up at dawn, cooking and cleaning like a woman possessed. By the time guests started arriving, I was exhausted and on edge. Susan swept in, Elsie in tow. "Oh, Landon," she sked, inspecting the table. "Didn't I say use the good china? And these centerpieces are all wrong." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Elsie shot me a sympathetic look but said nothing. As we sat down to dinner, Susan held court at the head of the table, praising Elsie's new job and Jake's recent promotion. I sat silently, pushing food around my plate. "So, Landon," Susan's voice cut through the chatter, "any news from you? Or are you still just keeping house?" Something inside me snapped, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Actually, Susan, I do have some news. I'm leaving." The table fell silent. Jake stared at me, mouth agape. "Leaving?" Susan's voice was dangerously low. "What do you mean, leaving?" I took a deep breath. "I mean I'm done. Done with your manipulation, your constant criticism, your blatant favoritism. I'm done watching you tear this family apart while everyone pretends everything's fine." "How dare you?" Susan began, but I cut her off. "No, how dare you? You've made my life hell from the moment I married Jake. You've turned him against me, isolated me from the family. And for what? Because I'm not from the right social circle? Because I don't fit your perfect mold?" I turned to Jake, tears streaming down my face. "And you've stood by and let this happen. You've chosen her over me, time and time again." Jake reached for my hand. "Landon, please, let's talk about this." I pulled away. "There's nothing left to talk about. I'm leaving tonight. I can't be part of this toxic family anymore." As I stormed out of the dining room, I heard chairs scraping and voices rising. Elsie called out my name, but I didn't turn back. In our bedroom, I threw clothes into a suitcase, my hands shaking. Jake burst in, his face pale. "Landon, you can't do this. We can work it out." I zipped up the suitcase and faced him. "Can we, Jake? Can you honestly tell me you'll stand up to your mother? That things will change?" His silence was all the answer I needed. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. As I reached for the handle, I paused, turning back to Jake one last time. "I love you, Jake, but I love myself more, and I deserve better than this." With that, I walked out into the cold November night, leaving behind the shattered remains of what I once thought was my perfect life. As I drove away, I realized this wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of my fight for justice and self-respect. I found myself in a small motel on the outskirts of town, staring at my phone as missed calls and messages from Jake piled up. I couldn't bring myself to respond. The weight of my decision pressed down on me, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not now. A soft knock on the door startled me. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. To my surprise, Elsie stood there, looking nervous. I opened the door. "Elsie, what are you doing here?" She wrung her hands. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you." Once inside, Elsie burst into tears. "I'm so sorry, Landon. I should have spoken up sooner. The way Susan's been treating you, it's not right." I handed her a tissue, my mind reeling. "Why now? What changed?" Elsie took a deep breath. "After you left, everything fell apart. Susan tried to blame you, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. I told everyone how she's been manipulating us all." My heart raced. "What happened?" "It was chaos," Elsie continued. "Jake was devastated, but then Dustin called." "Dustin?" I asked, confused. "Jake's older brother?" Elsie nodded. "He heard what happened and decided it was time to tell the truth. He revealed that he moved away years ago because of Susan's harassment. She'd been doing the same thing to his wife." I sank onto the bed, stunned. "I had no idea." "None of us did," Elsie said. "But Landon, there's more. After Dustin's revelation, Roger, he gave Susan an ultimatum. He said she either changes her behavior or he's filing for divorce." My head spun with this new information. "And Jake? What did he do?" Elsie's eyes filled with tears again. He's a mess, Landon. He feels terrible for not believing you. He's been driving around all night looking for you. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another call from Jake. This time, I answered. Landon? His voice was hoarse. Thank God. Where are you? Please, we need to talk. I hesitated, looking at Elsie. She nodded encouragingly. I'm at the Pinewood Motel, I said finally. Room 12. Within minutes, I heard a car screech into the parking lot. Jake burst through the door, his eyes wild and red-rimmed. Landon, I'm so sorry, he choked out. I've been such a fool. I should have believed you, should have stood up to my mother. I stood there, torn between the urge to comfort him and the anger still simmering inside me. It's not that simple, Jake. You let this go on for so long. I know, he said, running a hand through his disheveled hair, but I'm ready to make it right. Mom's behavior, it stops now. I've told her if she doesn't change, she's out of our lives for good. My breath caught in my throat. You said that to Susan? Jake nodded firmly. I did, and I meant it. You're my wife, Landon. You should have been my priority all along. As the weight of his words sank in, another knock came at the door. Elsie opened it, revealing a distraught Susan. I suppose I should have known you'd all be here, she said, her voice uncharacteristically small. The room fell silent as Susan stepped inside. She looked around at each of us, her usual composure cracking. I owe you all an apology, she began, her voice trembling. Especially you, Landon. My behavior has been inexcusable. I stood there, frozen, as Susan continued her apology. Part of me wanted to believe her, to accept this olive branch and move forward. But another part remembered all the pain, all the manipulation. As Susan finished speaking, all eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of expectation, the pressure to forgive and forget. But could I? Should I? In that moment, standing in a shabby motel room with my husband, my sister-in-law, and the woman who had caused me so much pain, I realized I was at a crossroads. My next words, my next action would shape the future of this family forever. I took a deep breath, ready to make the hardest decision of my life. The tension in the motel room was palpable as I faced Susan, her apology hanging in the air between us. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Roger, Jake's father. Landon, his voice was urgent. Are you with Susan? You need to come to the house. Now. Within minutes, we were all piling into cars, racing back to the family home. As we pulled up, I saw Roger pacing on the front porch, his face ashen. What's going on? Jake asked as we approached. Roger's eyes darted between us. Dustin's here, and he's not alone. We followed Roger into the living room, where Dustin sat with a woman I'd never seen before. She was clutching a folder, her knuckles white. This is Sarah, Dustin said, his voice tight. My ex-wife. Susan gasped. Ex-wife, but you never... Because of you, Mother, Dustin snapped. Sarah left me because of your constant interference and manipulation. Sarah stood, her hands shaking. I'm sorry to do this, but people need to know the truth. She opened the folder, revealing a stack of letters. These are from Susan, spanning years. They detail her plans to drive me away, to control Dustin's life, to manipulate the entire family. The room erupted into chaos. Jake snatched a letter, his face paling as he read. Elsie burst into tears. Roger slumped into a chair, looking defeated. Susan's facade finally cracked. You don't understand, she wailed. I was protecting my family. I had to make sure they married the right people, that they lived the right lives. By destroying those lives, I found my voice, anger surging through me. By tearing apart your own children's marriages? Roger stood suddenly, his voice quivering with rage. Enough, Susan. This ends now. Either you agree to counseling and make amends with everyone you've hurt, or I'm filing for divorce. Susan's eyes widened in shock. Roger, you can't mean that. After all these years... All these years of what? Roger shouted. Lies, manipulation. I won't stand for it anymore. As the arguments escalated, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I looked at Jake, saw the pain and confusion in his eyes, and knew what I had to do. Stop, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. Just stop. All eyes turned to me. This isn't about choosing sides anymore, I continued. It's about healing. Susan, what you've done is unforgivable. But holding on to this anger, this resentment, it's destroying all of us. I turned to Jake. I love you, but I can't come back. Not yet. We all need time to process this, to heal. Jake nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I looked at Susan, who seemed to have aged years in the past hour. And you need help. Professional help. If you're truly sorry, if you want to make amends, that's where you start. Susan nodded weakly, all fight gone from her. As for me, I said, taking a deep breath, I'm going to stay with my parents for a while. I need space to figure out who I am outside of all this drama. Elsie stepped forward, taking my hand. I'm coming with you. Michael and we need a fresh start too. As the reality of the situation sank in, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. I looked around the room, at the shattered remains of what was once a picture-perfect family. This isn't the end, I said softly. It's a new beginning, for all of us. As I walked out of the house, Elsie by my side and my suitcase in hand, I knew I was stepping into an uncertain future. But I was ready to face it, stronger and wiser than before. The real challenge was just beginning, but for the first time I felt equipped to handle whatever came next. The weeks following the confrontation at Susan and Roger's house were a whirlwind of change. Elsie and I settled into my parents' guest house, finding solace in each other's company as we navigated our new reality. Jake called daily, his voice a mixture of regret and determination as he updated me on family therapy sessions and his own counseling. But it was the call from Roger that truly shook me. Landon, his voice was heavy with emotion. Susan's left. She refused to attend therapy, and she's filed for divorce. I sat down, stunned. Roger, I'm so sorry, he sighed. Don't be. It's for the best. But there's more. Thanksgiving is in 2 days and, well, we were hoping you'd come, all of you. My heart raced at the thought. I don't know, Roger. It might be too soon. Please, he said softly, let's try to heal together. After a long discussion with Elsie and her husband Michael, we agreed to go. As we pulled up to the house on Thanksgiving morning, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Jake met us at the door, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. You came, he whispered, pulling me into a gentle hug. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Dustin and Sarah had come too, along with Roger and, to my surprise, a therapist named Dr. Martinez. I thought we could use a mediator, Roger explained. As we gathered around the table, the empty chair where Susan usually sat loomed large. Dr. Martinez cleared her throat. I know this is unconventional, she began, but let's use this time to start healing. Who would like to begin? One by one, we shared our pain, our regrets, our hopes. Tears flowed freely as years of hurt and misunderstanding came to light. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. I came here as a bride, full of hope and love. I never imagined the pain that would follow. But sitting here now, I realize something. We've all been victims of Susan's manipulation, but we've also been complicit in our silence. I looked at Jake, seeing the pain in his eyes. Jake, I love you, but I need you to understand how deeply your inaction hurt me. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know, Landon, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me. As the conversation continued, I felt a shift in the room. The air seemed lighter, as if a heavy fog was finally lifting. Dr. Martinez smiled. This is just the beginning, but it's a powerful start. Now, why don't we enjoy this meal together, as a family? As we passed dishes and shared stories, I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't perfect, the wounds were still fresh, but it was a start. After dinner, Jake pulled me aside. Landon, I know I have a lot to make up for, but I want you to know I'm committed to change. To us. When you're ready, I'll be here. I squeezed his hand, a small smile on my face. I know, Jake, and I want to work on us too. But I need time, but I want to heal, to find myself again. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the porch with Elsie and Michael. We watched the sunset, a comfortable silence between us. What now? Elsie asked softly. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. Now we heal. We grow. We build something new. Together. Michael nodded. I like the sound of that. As we drove home that night, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free from Susan's manipulation, free from the weight of silence, free to be myself. I glanced at Elsie, saw the same determination in her eyes, and knew we would be okay. We had survived the storm, and though the aftermath was messy and uncertain, we were stronger for it. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I realized that sometimes the end of one chapter is just the beginning of a far more beautiful story, and I was ready to write mine on my own terms.